Hello and welcome to this episode of Pipeline to Profitability. I'm Alan Ferguson. This podcast is proudly sponsored by Service Success Academy. So today we're speaking with Corey Berrier. Now, Corey is a sales and business expert with over 25 years of experience in the service industry. Corey is a 2-time author and respected public speaker at major conferences. Now, Corey's expertise lies in the home service industry, where he revolutionizes business through advanced AI technology. So today, we're going to discuss using AI technology to better improve your service company. Welcome to the podcast, Corey. Welcome for the second time round, Corey, to the podcast. And today, I am just looking forward into continuing where we left off a few weeks back in regards to AI. A lot of contractors are a little bit concerned with what's going on. You made some really good, valid points that have got me curious about the direction of the industry, the service industry, which is where our listeners are. So welcome, Corey. Thanks for joining us again, my friend.
Thanks, Alan. I appreciate that, my man. This is going to be a great conversation. I'm super excited because I found out some new stuff since I talked to you last. So I'm really, really excited to have the opportunity to share that with the listeners.
Fantastic. Well, listen, you are probably, out of everyone that I've met in the industry, you are probably ahead of most. And I know our friend Billy Stevens is playing with some really cool AI technology within Sira software. And boy, I would hate to be a competitor of Sira. But anyway, that's another conversation. But you're ahead of most in this area, and I'm fascinated by your knowledge. So let's just see where this goes as far as where you feel we're heading with all this amazing technology.
Well, you're right. Billy Stevens he's a step ahead of, I think, everybody. I think that dude is one of the smartest guys I've ever met. And if people don't know and are not watching what Billy's doing, and maybe some people don't know, I don't know. Maybe we're just privy because we know Billy personally, but that guy's tying some stuff together. And if you're not on his team, you were going to want to be, that's for sure. But there's Billy's little shout out. So, I appreciate you saying that. I spent a lot of time looking at this stuff. And one of the things that, there's so many different ways that I could go here, but there's two things that I really want to tell you about. And one is, if you're a contractor, say $1 to $5 million, and a lot of the people that we deal with are in that range. And we have obviously people that are doing more than that, but lots of times I believe that, most contractors don't start out with a pile of money in the bank. They don't start out with a ton of business knowledge. In fact, most don't start out with a lot of business knowledge because it doesn't really come with the territory, and you have to learn that stuff. And so one thing that AI has been able to do is fast track. I'll give you an example, like SOPs or scope of work, or, I have a friend that built this prompt, and I wish I could take credit for it because it's incredible. And it'll build out, scope of practice for people that don't know what SOP means, scope of work, SOW. It'll build out for every position in the company. And look, I've had people look at it. I've never owned a service company, so I had to have another set of eyes look at it. And it was flawless. But now the guy that built it knew what he was doing. And so my point in bringing that up is it makes their business run faster. It makes it run smoother. It makes it run more efficient. Therefore, it's more profitable. Hence the name of this, Pipeline to Profitability, right? The other thing that I see that's a big, big, big thing in this industry is, and we may have talked about this last time, is most contractors don't have time to follow up. Even though there's money on the table, you get pulled in a million different directions. This is not a knock on contractors. Look, you get phone calls, you get emails, you got a lot of stuff that you've got to think about, and following up is not fun. And so one thing that we've discovered is a process that is tied into, let's just call it a CRM, that has a follow-up sequence in it that uses some of the, like some of the other companies, voicemail drop or ringless voicemail, text messaging, and email. And I've used a sequence with those three things that work. I've used it within plumbing companies, within moving companies, and the process works. We added $1.2 million to the company that year just by following up. Now it's a $10 million. It was a $10 million company, wound up being 11.2. It works. And so we've been able to streamline this process and make it super easy for the contractor to do it themselves, or, there's a service that you can pay to do that as well. That's not completely built out yet, but it's really close. And at the end of the day, if you had to pay somebody, well, let me just ask you, you own a service company. If you're not making your follow-up calls for whatever reason, and you had to pay somebody a percentage that's within the percentage that you have allotted for profit, don't you think that's a win, even if it's half that percentage? I'm not saying that's what, I'm not saying that's what we charge for the follow-up process, but let's say 10% of the sale. If you could pay somebody 10% of the sale and they would follow up on every single call that you make, and you wouldn't even have to think about it. As a contractor, would that be worth it to you? Well, right now you're getting zero from those follow-ups. So to fork out 10% of the total cost doesn't seem like it's that bad, depending on your margins, of course.
I agree, Corey. Look, I know I've shared this before, and whether it was on our podcast together, or another podcast that I've done, when I first was introduced to proposal follow-up, and this was a live example. It was a small company that was doing about $3 million a year. They had a really good follow-up person, and all this individual did was follow up proposals that have been left with customers, that the sales professional. And look, I the other thing I talk about is the titles that we give the technicians that are out there making sales. We need to stop calling them salespeople, because that's a big red flag for the customer. But this particular company was generating approximately 30% of its revenue from following up proposals that the technicians or the senior technicians, whatever that position is, did. Now, I know this in our companies, we've had lots of people work for us doing outbound, doing follow-up. We could never get this right. But the way we did it, our technicians would leave a lot of proposals, and look, at any one time, that could be hundreds of thousands of dollars, literally. We were turning over well over $2 million a month, and there's a lot of revenue that's sitting on the table. Now, our technicians struggled with the follow-up, or they just were effing lazy, where, I've rung and left a message, they didn't get back to me. And, well, I've left them they're probably not going to leave. They're probably not going to come back to you, because either the price was more than they wanted to spend, or they've got a cheaper bid. But from my perspective, I just want to fucking know we've got the job or we haven't. And I've always said in all my training, yes is fantastic. No is also really good. But please don't come back to me with they're going to get back to me or maybe. So how we did it, we had a follow-up. We had a proposal follow-up person, and he shared the commission of what was already on the job. So let's say we had a 10% flat commission, and it's a $50,000 job. So if the follow-up person won the job, he would get 50% of that. We don't want to take the technician out of the equation completely, but I mean, if I was the guy out in the field losing half of my fucking commissions, I probably would follow up a little bit more aggressively. And I gave my technicians the tools they needed to actually follow up with a system that was like 95% sound. So sorry to drag that one away from you, but I needed to share a real life example of how friggin' powerful this is when companies follow up just proposals. And there's so many other areas we can go into with this. And I believe that you may know whether AI can actually make the phone call. Maybe we're not that advanced yet. And I know we've talked about AI is not going to replace everyone in your company, but it will make you more efficient. It will make you more lean. You won't need as many people because the people you've got will have better tools. So back to you, my man. But this is a fantastic conversation, one that I have always been very passionate about.
So, what if, what if the customer just forgot your name? What if they just forgot the service technician's name, right? They may not necessarily forget the company, but it's that your company name and that technician's name is not really that important to that customer unless you make sure it's important, right? So it could be that, look, I'm doing this process currently with an HVAC company, and it's unbelievable the response that I get, just the fact that we're following up. They're like, I can't even believe you called. And I'm like, well, that's what we do, right? And it's refreshing to see it's refreshing to know that it's pretty common in this industry that people just don't follow up. Think about it. It's summertime. It's hot. You have lots of times people, especially HVAC companies, and I don't know about plumbing necessarily, depending on where you are, I guess, maybe that weather affects it. Does it?
In Houston, I'm in Houston, and yes, but in Sydney, the climate, it's not as, weather doesn't affect companies as much as it does here in Texas or Arizona but we do get hot days, and yes, the calls would spike there, but we're more, weather doesn't impact the contractors in Australia as much as it does in the US. So you have to be more, you got to understand, you got to be more, I suppose, systematic in your follow-up and more for tune-ups and yeah, so the extreme weather, although as I said, we do get it, but nowhere near as much as here in the US.
Well, so my point in saying that though is if you've got, if it's, let's just say the company I'm doing this for is in Arizona, right? So it's hot. It's really hot. Things are breaking. And so they have leads coming in. And so my experience shows that, if you've got somebody that said maybe, and you've got somebody that's fresh, lots of times we want to go to that fresh person because the slate's clean. We don't have we don't have a maybe, we don't have doubts. So we just go to the new person. And then we kind of forget about the person that said maybe. And I know I don't like maybes either. But my point is that maybe could turn into, if you just followed up with them, it could turn into a yes. So does that make sense? And look, this system that I'm talking about, that's just one part of it. Alan, it does so many different things in terms of calendar, in terms of content creation. It does a lot of different things, and I would encourage people to check it out. And I don't know when this podcast is coming out, but I imagine by then it'll be released. So you could either follow up with Alan or I, which you probably won't follow up with us because people don't follow up. But let me shift gears for a second, because I want to ask you, I was talking to Joe Cunningham the other day, and I know you and Joe are tight. And what I didn't know about Joe is that 10-day, his academy is 10 days. Now you're working on something currently that's not 10 days, but you're working on a drain. Maybe you could just tell us about it?
Yeah, look, and the training that I do it's very much about drains, because the reason I have focused on drains and plumbing companies, and look, I'm working with some big HVAC companies that have added a plumbing division to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars. So the reason I focus on drains is because it's a niche area. There's not too many people in the industry that have my level of knowledge, skill. I've built companies, some of the biggest drain companies in Australia. So I've got that level of knowledge, not just from a textbook, but following up. The way that we're going to and me and Joe, our business here in Houston, Service Success Academy, is taking what Joe taught me 10 years ago. Now, anyone that thinks that the call by call management is a new thing, it's fucking not. It's something that Joe taught me many years ago. And that why the dispatcher is one of the most important positions in any company. But now with the evolution of Sira, the dispatching is done using AI, and that's something that we'll come back to. But I focus on drains because of the extreme profitability, but I also focus on most companies I work with don't realize the untapped potential of the customers they've already served. They're out there searching for, and this is really important for anyone that's listening, that's got a plumbing division that really wants to take their drain division to a whole new level. You've got all the leads you need. Why would you spend $300-400 for a Google click that you don't even know what the conversion rate is? I mean, Google has forced most plumbing and HVAC companies to look for an alternative. That alternative, in my opinion, is using AI with CRM tied into automation within your CRM. And most, I know all the companies I work with in Australia don't even have fucking CRM. They use job management, which doesn't, the CRM side of it is crap. So they need to have an additional product, which is not hard. There's some really good products out there. We're discussing a few good products at the moment, and I won't talk about that in too much detail. I just want to talk about the mechanics of this. So using AI to help you automate your follow-up to your existing customers for drain inspections, for warranty calls, and my training teaches contractors the power of warranty. I mean, most companies view warranty wrong. I view warranty is you got another fucking opportunity to go back and close the sale and get the repair and fix the problem, not just a Band-Aid solution. So warranty is very powerful if done correctly. But with our training, Corey, I can say this with as much confidence as I have, that every company I've ever worked with, from the worst to the best, and I don't work with many bad companies because I have focused on the top 1 to 5% of the industry. But most companies, even the really well-run companies, and I was in Dallas last week working with some of the best companies on the planet, they have opportunity they just don't realize. So probably went on a bit too much on that one, Corey, but this is all fascinating to me, how we can use AI to actually help contractors to generate leads at a fraction of the cost of what they're currently spending. Back to you, my friend.
So, well, okay. So I thank you for that. I think that what I really want you, I think after understanding a little bit more about the in-person stuff that you have coming up, I think it's important for anybody that owns a plumbing business to really pay attention to this part, because one, you don't have to be a plumber to come and take your drain to learn about drains, to implement what you teach. And technically, this is an easy way to add people to your add employees to your team, right? A lot of people are struggling with employees right now. So if I had a plumbing company and I had the very little amount of money that it takes to invest in, well, I think it's a little amount. I don't think you charge as much as you should. Look, you could, I mean, let's just take a $5 million plumbing company. I'll ask you a hard question, or maybe it's not hard. If they added a drain division, it would probably cost them how much money, and then approximately how long would it take to get their brand new employee that's never turned a wrench ready to go on their first call?
Yeah, look, I probably should have answered this on the last section, but my mind is thinking, okay, how can I share what I know with our target or with our audience in the shortest possible time? So basically, Joe Cunningham runs a plumbing school. and he can take someone that's got zero plumbing experience through a 10-day course. Really, really, to me, I think he could charge a lot more, Joe, if you're listening to this podcast. But look, it's your business. 10 days, you can have that individual have about 70% of the knowledge that he needs to actually run calls, plumbing calls, back into his company, gets the additional training, maybe a couple of months. So I feel and we all know that the best employees in any company are not necessarily the employees with the highest skill. We can give them that skill. 3 months from nothing, from zero skill, the right attitude is number one. The right personality type and the right attitude is the most important thing. 3 months to the point where they don't have the drain skills, we can actually give them skills. Joe's training, the plumbing school does give some basics on drains. I take it to a whole new level. I teach contractors and I've had non-plumbers in my training. I take it to a whole new level by giving them the extreme profit strategies and what is possible from a drain perspective. It's highly friggin' profitable when you add a no-dig trenchless solution. And we're moving our training to American Pipelining Supplies headquarters in South Carolina. We're going to start kicking off our 3-day training towards the end of August, and it's an amazing collaboration with APS because they've got the technology, they've got the equipment, and I've got that knowledge that I can pass on to technicians and service managers. Now, I recommend if you're going to build a really profitable drain business, you need to get the operations right. I go one-on-one into companies and they haven't quite got the operations, meaning they haven't got the right equipment on the truck and the right cameras, the right drain cleaning equipment to effectively run a discounted drain clear and move that as quickly as possible to a profitable call with my staging process. So we can train all this, but I would much rather companies that want to take this part of the industry seriously, and the profits are really, really high. I mean, I'm talking the well-run companies I work with are doing well over 70% gross margins from this type of work, well over 70%. But there is some training involved on the technology you're going to use. There's not a big capital outlay. So if you've got a plumbing business and you've got some basic drain cleaning equipment, to actually get into entry-level no-dig solutions, we're talking 20 grand on top of having the equipment that you would need anyway. So it's not a big investment, but the training is the key. That's why I believe working with, my view is APS, American Pipelining Supplies, is one of the best training organizations I've ever fucking come across when it comes to trenchless, when it comes to drain equipment. Anyway, that's a little bit of a plug for APS as well as Sarah. Right back to you, my friend.
So, but really, but if you're looking for employees, if you're struggling trying to find employees, this would be a solution that would help add dollars to the bottom line and solve problems for you, right? I mean,
Yep. Grow them yourself. It's the best way. Trust me, it is. And there's some really, there is some really good talent out there in plumbing world and drain cleaning world. But, and I learned this from a mentor of mine back in Australia, who's actually the founder of APS, Australian Pipelining Supplies. He taught me, and we were a training, our companies that I founded, we were a training organization, not just for our own business growth, but for the industry via Service Nation. And so I learned earlier on, it's our apprentices and the kids we're bringing into our business today that are the future. You invest in them, and you got to get the right people. I mean, I mentioned this. It's the attitude, the right personality type, and all the things we within our Service Success Academy drain training. These are all the basics that I teach. And Joe.
Yeah. So it makes sense, and I think kind of swinging it back full circle with this and in conjunction with, look, you use AI you've been using AI for years, but people don't think about, like, if you ask Alexa something, that is using AI, right? So we've been using AI. We just didn't realize we were using AI, but now it's just become so much easier and more mainstream that I think that it's going to improve how quickly and how effectively you can help these guys, right? Because, I think you and I have talked about this previously, but, we could train let's just pretend that your organization uses Slack. A lot of people do. You actually may use Slack.
Yeah.
So just pretend that we could train a model, an AI model that would operate inside of Slack that would answer any question that, just like Alan Ferguson would answer that question, but it would be dedicated strictly to your Slack channel. And the only people who have access to that are the people that you work with. Now, how much quicker and easier, I shouldn't say easier, but how much quicker could you teach these guys if you didn't have to personally answer whatever questions they have?
I love it.
Right?
Yeah, that's a good one, Corey. And that technology, and I mean, my mind's thinking, shit, how can we better add value to the clients I'm already working with? But imagine if you did that with your CSRs that answer the calls, or imagine if you were using Sira software and you didn't need as many CSRs. It's scary. When I went into Billy Go, it's scary how few people are actually there running the business for the size. It's a big company, and it's like, this shit that Billy's teaching to the world, it really works. I've seen it firsthand. He has the percentage of people that he has, because most companies, look, I've worked with companies in Australia that run a one-to-one ratio, meaning one person in the office for every person in the field. We were closer to 2-to-1. But if you can imagine how your business would look if you could get that to 5-to-1, 10-to-1 using AI technology. As I said, I've ventured off to a different conversation again, but look, 30 minutes on this podcast is not enough for us to talk about where the direction of the industry is going. But the main area that I want everyone that's listening to focus on is, how can you use AI to follow up with the existing customers you've already got, to remind them of bookings, follow up proposals, and there's got to be human intervention there, but so much revenue potential.
Does there have to be human interaction? I don't know. I mean, so think about this. When you call the airline to book an airline, if you call an airline, let's just pretend that you had to call an airline. Most likely you're going to talk to a bot, I would say greater part of 60% of the time, maybe 70% of the time, before you ever get to a human being. That's AI. So we're already used to using this in certain industries. What makes people think that I would rather talk to somebody that doesn't have an attitude, that, that's just going to answer my damn question and let me move on, So, I'm not saying it's going to completely replace human beings, but I think people are going to prefer to talk to, if it sounds just like you or me talking today, and we know that's possible.
Yeah.
Then, and you can get a clear, concise answer without any kind of BS. I don't know. It saves me time, if that's how I look at it.
Love it, Corey. Something I was reading, this is relevant to AI and where it's going in the industry. I read an article last week saying that very, very soon, the first billion-dollar company is going to be built using AI technology that will have approximately 3 people running it.
Wow.
That was, I forget where the article was, but they're talking about how much you can, companies that are really using AI can actually build businesses now with very, very few staff. And I've always said in my training, business would be so much easier if we didn't have customers and employees, right? But yeah, look, I try to stay off the AI will replace your staff, because might get a few of my clients might get really pissed off with me, especially if they are the staff that we're referring to. So it's everyone's safe right now, but I would ask anyone in a position that is customer facing, following up, I would be thinking about what are your next steps, and maybe getting on board with the AI revolution might be the best steps, right?
I think, it may not replace all the employees. My hope is that it improves your processes, it makes you more efficient, more profitable, and that gives you the opportunity to find new positions that those people may be a better fit for. My hope is that it elevates the people that are working for you. Maybe your company doubles and you need those people for other jobs. And so I don't want people to think that you're just going to be able to replace your workforce, because I don't believe that right this second. But I do think if you understand this technology, you can subsidize. I think that's how I need to say it. Subsidize.
Works for me.
Yeah, your workforce, and maybe give those people a different position. But at the end of the day, when you go into business, it's to make money. And
Absolutely.
if you can make more money using AI, I don't know why you wouldn't do that.
Look, that's a really good one, and we'll have to round up in a minute, Corey. And I hope you've got a book recommendation. I'll come back to you on that one. But business is about making money and being, and in part of the workshops that I've done with Billy, efficiencies is where you will find the most profit hiding within your business. Now, what it does with a company, and we've all had, anyone that's owned a business and built a business, we've all had good staff, like really good staff, and then we've had bad staff. And look, a bad team member doesn't mean they're a bad person. It's just the fit is not right. They haven't got what they need to make the company improve. So what AI is going to do is allow the smart business owners to focus on the A graders, and those that are not coming on board with where the direction of the industry is going will get left behind, and they will find themselves not unemployed but looking for a different company to work for. So I'll end it at that. So do you have currently a book that you're excited to recommend to our listeners, and from there, how does everyone get a hold of Corey Berrier?
Sure. So the book I would recommend, and this is what I've gone through it twice now, it's called Ego, Authority, Failure. And it's written by Derek Gaunt. He's part of the Black Swan group with Chris Voss. So he's a hostage negotiator. And I thought it was fascinating because ego and authority lots of times leads to failure. If you have to be right, if you're the boss and you have to be the boss and you have to be right, that's ego and authority, which ultimately we both know doesn't really, it's not a good collaboration, right? If you're speaking from a place of ego and authority, you're going to turn people off in your business, and they're not going to want to work for you. And I just thought it was a really important thing to bring up, because look, I've been that guy. I've 100% been that guy. But I've also learned my lessons. And people can find me at CoreyBerrier.com or Successful Life Podcast. I'd love for you to listen to that. Or you can find me on any social media channel. Just spell my last name, but B-E instead of B-A.
Oh, thank you, Corey. This has been great. And, as I say I say this in most of the podcast I do, I actually get more from the podcast than most of those that are out there listening. It's always good. And I love where the direction of the industry is going with AI, and just a lot of other really cool stuff happening. So thanks again for joining us, Corey. It's always a pleasure. And thanks for everyone for tuning in to Pipeline to Profitability. And yeah, that's a wrap, right?
Thank you, sir.
Cheers, buddy.